Welcome back to the channel where today we dive deep into one of the most fascinating discoveries in the world of rare coins, a story that could make you look at the change in your pocket completely differently, because hidden among billions of ordinary pennies are some extraordinary treasures. And one of the most shocking and valuable examples is the 1971 no-mint Mark 1 cent coin from the United States that has been known to sell for as high as $600,000. And what makes this coin so special isn't just its age or the fact that it lacks a mint mark, but rather the multitude of errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that came out of the minting process in 1971, errors that turned what was supposed to be just another penny into a fortune-changing collectible. And before we dig into exactly what kinds of mistakes and striking anomalies can make such a coin worth $600,000, let's set the stage by talking about what the no-mint mark means in the first place. Because most pennies struck in 1971 came out of different mints across the United States, with mint marks like D for Denver and S for San Francisco stamped under the date, yet the coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint at that time did not carry a mint mark at all, which already makes them stand out to collectors. But what transforms a simple no-mint mark Philadelphia penny into a once-in-a-lifetime rarity is when the die itself, the planchet, or the strike process introduces major mistakes that escape detection and make their way into circulation, and that's where the real excitement begins, because imagine a coin where the date 1971 appears doubled because the die shifted during the striking process, creating what's known as a doubled die obverse, a type of error that collectors hunt down relentlessly because the doubling of the numbers or the letters like Liberty and In God We Trust can be dramatic and easily visible even to the naked eye, and these doubled die examples can skyrocket in value, with strong doubling sometimes leading to valuations in the hundreds of thousands. Now add to that the possibility of off-center strikes where the design of Lincoln's profile and the lettering is not aligned properly with the planchet so that a portion of the design is missing entirely, yet the date is still fully visible, making such a coin both an oddity and a prize. And suddenly we begin to understand how such pennies can command life-changing money. And then there are broad strikes, when the coin is struck outside the collar and the metal spreads wider than usual, resulting in a penny that looks stretched or oddly shaped, yet still unmistakably a 1971 no-mint mark coin, and collectors pay a premium for these because they are rare and visually striking errors. And the list goes on because in 1971 the minting process was not perfect and coins could emerge with clipped planchets where a section of the penny looks as if it was cut off like a bite mark, adding yet another layer of uniqueness that collectors crave. And some coins were even struck on the wrong planchets entirely, for example using a blank intended for a dime or a foreign coin, and when that happens the weight, thickness, and coloration of the penny are completely wrong, yet the design of Lincoln and the 1971 date appear in distorted ways, and those wrong planchet errors are among the rarest of the rare. And then there's the matter of die cracks and die breaks, where the dies themselves developed flaws as they wore down over time, resulting in raised lines, cuds, or blobs of extra metal appearing on the coin's surface, sometimes giving Lincoln's face strange marks or creating odd patterns that can make a specific coin one of a kind. And in the world of coin collecting, uniqueness equals value, especially when combined with the allure of a no-mint mark Philadelphia origin. And if we add misaligned dies where one side of the coin is not aligned with the other so that when you flip the penny the front and back don't match up, you get yet another form of error that excites collectors. And these mistakes, though they might seem small or unimportant to someone not in the know, are the very reasons a 1971 no-mint mark penny can reach astronomical values at auctions and private sales. And now imagine if more than one of these errors occurs on the same coin, like a double die obverse combined with a broad strike or a die crack across Lincoln's head. Such combinations are beyond rare and can push a coin into the kind of territory where six-figure sales become possible. And that's exactly what makes the hunt so thrilling, because with billions of coins produced, only a few slip through with such striking errors, and those few have become legends in the coin collecting world, and collectors will bid against each other to own them, driving up the prices into the hundreds of thousands. And when we hear a figure like $600,000 for a penny that originally cost just 1 cent, it may sound unbelievable, but the coin market operates on rarity, demand, and uniqueness. And when all three come together in a coin like the 1971 no mint mark era penny, the sky is the limit. And another important point is condition, because not all era coins are created equal, and the grading process plays a huge role in determining value. With coins graded as mint state, especially those with sharp details and little to no wear, being exponentially more valuable than circulated coins with scratches, dents, or faded features. And this means that if someone finds a 1971 no mint mark penny with a dramatic error and it happens to be in near perfect condition, that's when we see those headline-grabbing sales in the range of hundreds of thousands. And even more subtle errors can bring in thousands if the coin is well preserved. And collectors and dealers constantly search rolls of pennies, bags from the bank, or inherited collections to try to spot these treasures, because the idea that a single cent could secretly be worth more than a luxury house or a fleet of cars keeps the chase alive. And beyond errors, there are also varieties, slight intentional or unintentional changes in the design during production, like small differences in the lettering or spacing that create identifiable varieties catalogued by numismatists. And when such varieties occur in the 1971 no mint mark coins, they become collectible in their own right, and some varieties are rare enough to push prices into the tens of thousands, while the truly spectacular error variety combinations can reach the realm of $600,000. And this is why so many people stress the importance of checking your change carefully, because while it is rare to stumble upon such a valuable coin, it has happened and continues to happen, with lucky individuals discovering pennies, nickels, and quarters worth life-changing amounts mixed into ordinary pocket change or sitting unnoticed in a jar for decades. And with the 1971 no mint mark penny being a prime example of a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but can hold hidden fortune, the excitement is real. And if we think about all the possibilities like double strikes where the coin is struck more than once, resulting in overlapping designs that look like a ghost image, or rotated dies where the back of the coin is turned at an angle relative to the front, it becomes clear that the potential combinations of errors in 1971 pennies are vast, and each combination can create a coin that no one else in the world has, making it unique and highly desirable. And the market for such coins isn't slowing down. In fact, as more collectors enter the hobby and as awareness spreads through online platforms and auctions, the demand for dramatic era coins has only grown. Which means that values like $600,000 are not just fantasy but a real reflection of collector competition. And when we think about the history, the artistry, and the sheer accident of these mistakes, it makes the story even richer, because a coin meant to be a simple cent for everyday transactions became an artifact of error and rarity that can now buy mansions, cars, or investments. And the allure of that transformation captures the imagination. So as we wrap this long exploration of the 1971 no mint mark penny, remember that the magic lies in the mistakes, the doubling, the misalignments, the cracks, the clips, and the strikes that turn an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's why collectors and treasure hunters alike are constantly checking their change, scouring old collections, and studying every detail of coins under magnification, because the next great discovery might just be hiding in plain sight, and who knows? Maybe the next $600,000 penny is already sitting in your pocket waiting for you to notice its secrets. Next, 1964 D1 cent USA coin, another incredible deep dive into the hidden treasures of everyday pocket change, where we uncover stories that can change the way you look at even the most ordinary coins. And today's focus is on a piece that seems so common yet holds the potential for extraordinary value, the 1964 D mint mark 1 cent coin from the United States. A Lincoln Memorial cent that has been known in certain rare cases with unique errors and mistakes to reach shocking price tags, even going as high as $500,000 at auctions or in private collections. And while at first glance this may sound impossible given that the coin's face value is only 1 cent, the truth lies in the mysterious world of minting errors, die varieties, historical context, and collector demand. And just like in our last exploration of the 1971 no mint mark penny, the 1964 Denver Mint Lincoln cent represents another chapter in the ongoing saga of how something so ordinary can suddenly transform into a life-altering treasure. So let's take a long, detailed, An immersive journey into exactly what makes the 1964 D-penny so rare and why it can be worth $500,000, exploring everything from minting process mistakes to doubled dies, planchet errors, die breaks, and more, with no shortcuts, because this story deserves the full attention of anyone interested in coins, history, or the thrill of hidden fortune. The year 1964 was significant in American coinage, not just because it was the final year before the massive coinage changes that began in 1965 with the removal of silver from dimes and quarters, but also because it was a time of extremely high mintage for the Lincoln cent, with the Denver Mint producing over 3.7 billion pennies alone, making the 1964 D-penny one of the most common Lincoln cents on record, and yet, paradoxically, it is from this ocean of common coins that a few extraordinary rarities have emerged, and that's because high production numbers often led to mistakes as the minting machinery was pushed to its limits, dies wore out, planchets slipped through quality control, and striking errors went unnoticed, and collectors today seek out these mistakes like treasure hunters panning for gold, because while the vast majority of 1964 D-pennies are worth only face value or slightly more in uncirculated condition, the small fraction with dramatic errors or unique die varieties are worth fortunes, with certain examples verified at auction fetching amounts close to $500,000. And this isn't just hype, it's the real story of how human error, machine imperfection, and historical circumstance can combine to turn pocket change into priceless artifacts. So, what kinds of errors and mistakes can make a 1964 D-penny so valuable? Let's start with one of the most famous categories, the doubled die errors, where the coin shows clear signs of doubling on the obverse or reverse due to a misalignment in the hubbing process that creates the dies. And in the case of the 1964 D-penny, collectors have identified examples where "Liberty in God We Trust" and the numbers of the date show noticeable doubling, and such dramatic doubling can elevate the value into the thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, depending on the severity and visibility, because collectors prize coins that show the doubling with the naked eye rather than requiring magnification, and among double die varieties, those with bold, crisp doubling on the obverse are considered the crown jewels, making them the kinds of coins that can achieve record-setting sales. But doubling isn't the only game in town, because another striking error seen in 1964 D-pennies involves off-center strikes, where the design was not properly centered on the planchet, resulting in coins where Lincoln's portrait is cut off or the date appears near the rim, or even partially missing, and as long as the mint mark and date remain visible, such off-center errors can be worth significant amounts, with dramatic off-center strikes commanding thousands or more, especially in mint state condition, and when combined with other errors like die cracks or clipped planchets, the rarity and value climb even higher. Speaking of clipped planchets, these are coins where part of the blank metal disc was cut improperly, resulting in a coin that appears to have a crescent-shaped bite taken out of it, and while minor clips may only bring modest premiums, dramatic clipped planchets from the 1964 Denver Mint, particularly those with multiple clips or other striking errors layered in, can fetch staggering sums, especially if they are well documented and certified by major grading services, because collectors know these are not post-mint damages but genuine minting anomalies, and authenticity is everything in the coin world. Then there are wrong planchet errors, where the Lincoln design was struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even another country, and these are among the rarest of all errors, sometimes creating coins that weigh less than or more than a normal cent, have strange coloration due to different metal compositions, or exhibit misfit designs that don't line up with the blank. And when such an error occurs on a 1964 D-penny, it creates one-of-a-kind collectibles that can absolutely justify prices approaching $500,000, because serious collectors will pay almost anything for coins that are proven unique and historically fascinating. Now let's talk about die breaks and die cracks, because the Denver Mint in 1964 was working under intense pressure, striking billions of coins, and the dies inevitably developed cracks, chips, and breaks that manifested as raised lines, blobs of metal, or chunks of missing design on the finished coins, and while minor die cracks are common, dramatic ones that create what's called cuds, large raised areas where the die broke away, are rare and valuable, especially when they distort Lincoln's profile or the lettering in dramatic ways, and collectors are fascinated by such pieces because they are tangible evidence of the minting process breaking down under stress. And when these die breaks occur in combination with other errors like misaligned dies or doubled dies, you get coins that are truly unique, and uniqueness is exactly what drives values into the six-figure range. Misaligned die errors themselves are also worth discussing, because in these cases the obverse and reverse designs don't line up properly, meaning when you flip the coin the back may be rotated or shifted, and while slight misalignments are common, extreme misalignments are rare and highly collectible, and in a coin like the 1964 D-penny, they add yet another fascinating layer of rarity. And we cannot forget about double strikes, coins that were struck more than once by the dies, resulting in ghost-like overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait or doubled reverse designs of the Lincoln Memorial. And these errors are visually striking and immediately recognizable even to non-collectors, making them especially desirable in the marketplace, with some examples known to reach huge sums depending on the severity and preservation. Imagine a 1964 D-penny with a double strike, a clipped planchet, and a bold die crack, all combined into one coin. That's the kind of scenario where values of $500,000 become entirely plausible, because such a coin would truly be unique, and in numismatics, there is nothing more valuable than uniqueness. Another element that must be considered in the valuation of the 1964 D-penny is condition, because grading plays a monumental role in the coin market, and while circulated examples with minor wear may fetch modest premiums if they have dramatic errors, it's the mint state coins, those that were preserved with no wear and sharp details, that can skyrocket in value. And when a coin combines rarity, dramatic errors, and near-perfect preservation, it creates the trifecta that collectors dream of, and those are the coins that reach $500,000 or beyond at auction. In fact, major grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated spectacular 1964 D-era pennies that brought record-breaking prices, and this serves as a reminder that the possibilities are real, not hypothetical. Historical context also adds to the allure, because the 1964 cent was part of a turbulent time in American coinage. Just before silver was removed from dimes and quarters, and just as the mint was ramping up production to unprecedented levels to deal with coin shortages, and the sheer stress on the Denver Mint's equipment and staff inevitably led to more errors slipping through than in calmer years. And this historical backdrop gives the 1964 D-penny a special place in the story of American coinage, making its dramatic errors not just mechanical accidents but artifacts of a particular moment in history. Collectors love stories, and when a coin carries both a story and an error, its value increases exponentially. Next, 1976 1-cent USA coin, this incredible journey into the hidden treasures of everyday coins, where we peel back the curtain on some of the most fascinating stories in numismatics and reveal how coins that most people dismiss as ordinary pocket change can actually be worth life-changing sums of money. And today's spotlight shines on the 1976 no-mint Mark 1-cent coin. A Lincoln Memorial cent that, under the right conditions, with the right errors and minting anomalies, can be worth an unbelievable $600,000. And before you shake your head in disbelief thinking that no penny could ever reach such an astronomical value, let me assure you that in the world of rare coins and minting mistakes, this is not just a possibility but a reality. Because collectors across the globe pay staggering sums for coins that combine rarity, history, condition, and dramatic mint errors. And the 1976 no-mint Mark penny has proven itself to be one of those coins that can transform a simple copper piece into a life-changing discovery. So let's take a deep dive into this story and explore everything from the background of the 1976 Lincoln cent to the types of errors that make it valuable, the importance of grading and condition, and why collectors are willing to spend six figures or more on what was supposed to be just an ordinary cent. And we will do it in the most detailed and continuous way possible so that by the end of this long exploration you will never look at a 1976 penny the same way again. The year 1976 was a special one in the history of the United States because it marked the bicentennial celebration of the nation's independence, and while quarters, half dollars, and dollars struck that year carried special bicentennial reverse designs to honor the 200th anniversary. The penny did not receive a commemorative design and instead retained the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse, yet this very fact adds to its mystique, because with the spotlight on the other coins, the humble 1976 penny slipped into circulation almost unnoticed, minted by the billions, and at first glance one might think there could be nothing rare or special about such a common coin, but within those billions lurked mistakes, flaws, and varieties that today can transform into fortunes for the lucky collector who discovers them. And the most dramatic of these are found in the no-mint mark pennies from the Philadelphia Mint, coins that lack a mint mark entirely under the date, which sets them apart from their Denver-minted counterparts marked with a D. And within these Philadelphia strikes we find some of the most extraordinary mint errors of the entire Lincoln Cent series, errors so rare that single coins have fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars in auctions and private sales. So what kinds of mistakes could possibly elevate a 1976 no-mint mark penny to a value of $600,000? The first category to consider is double die errors, where during the hubbing process the coin's design elements are impressed into the die more than once but not in perfect alignment, resulting in dramatic doubling on the finished coin. And in the case of the 1976 penny, examples exist where the date itself shows bold doubling, or where the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or even the Lincoln Memorial details on the reverse exhibit doubled lines, making them appear almost like shadows of the original design. And such doubling is highly prized by collectors, especially when it is visible to the naked eye without magnification, and dramatic doubled dies have sold for tens of thousands of dollars even on other years. So when a spectacular example emerges from 1976 in pristine condition, the value can soar towards six figures and even into the $600,000 realm when demand outpaces supply, which is exactly what happens when multiple collectors compete for a once-in-a-lifetime specimen. Next are off-center strikes, coins where the design is not properly aligned with the planchet during striking, leaving part of the coin blank and part of the design cut off. And while small misalignments are relatively common and add only modest premiums, large off-center strikes of 50% or more that still preserve a full visible date are extremely rare and can be worth enormous amounts. And when these occur on a 1976 no-mint mark penny in uncirculated condition, they become the kind of coins that make headlines, because the rarity is compounded by the specific year and minting circumstances, and collectors are willing to pay astonishing sums to own such visually striking pieces. Then we come to broad strikes and misstruck coins, where the coin was struck outside the collar that normally constrains its edges, causing the design to spread abnormally wide, giving the penny an odd, stretched appearance. And such errors are both eye-catching and valuable, especially when combined with other anomalies like doubling or die cracks. And speaking of die cracks, these are another key source of value in the 1976 penny, because as the dies used at the mint wear down, cracks can form, and these cracks transfer onto the coins as raised lines or blobs of metal, sometimes running across Lincoln's face or across the memorial on the reverse. And when these cracks become large enough, they produce dramatic features known as cuds, big raised areas where parts of the design are missing entirely. And collectors love these because no two are exactly alike, making each cud coin a unique piece. And uniqueness is the bedrock of numismatic value, which explains why extreme cud errors can sell for massive sums. Another type of error that can make a 1976 penny valuable is the clipped planchet, where the blank metal disc used to strike the coin was improperly cut, leaving a curved clip or even multiple clips on the coin's edge. And while minor clips are interesting but not worth a fortune, dramatic and multiple clipped planchets can be extremely rare, especially when they occur in combination with other errors, and wrong planchet errors are even more dramatic, occurring when a Lincoln Cent design was struck on a blank meant for another denomination, such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin planchet, resulting in a coin that has the wrong weight, size, or color yet bears the unmistakable 1976 date and Lincoln design, and these are among the most sought-after errors in all of coin collecting, with single examples sometimes selling for over $100,000, and in the rarest cases, when paired with superb condition and authentication by top grading services, they can push values into the $600,000 range. We also cannot forget about double strikes and multiple strikes, errors where the coin is struck more than once, leaving overlapping images of Lincoln's head, the date, or the reverse design, and these are among the most visually impressive errors because they are instantly recognizable even to people who know nothing about coins, and that broad appeal drives demand and prices sky high, especially when the coin is also a no-mint mark Philadelphia issue from 1976. And in addition to double strikes, there are rotated die errors where the front and back designs are misaligned by significant degrees, creating coins that look normal on one side but rotated oddly on the other. And dramatic rotations of 90 degrees or more can bring large premiums, with extreme examples reaching into six figures. Condition also plays a massive role in determining the value of the 1976 no-mint mark penny, because while dramatic errors can make even a circulated coin valuable, it is the coin's in mint state condition, preserved with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of wear, that can reach the astronomical values we are discussing. And grading services like PCGS and NGC carefully evaluate these coins on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with MS65, MS67, and higher grades being exponentially more valuable. And when you combine a dramatic error with a superb grade, the result is a coin that collectors may compete fiercely for at auction, driving the price upward into the hundreds of thousands. And indeed, this is how we arrive at valuations of $600,000 for certain spectacular examples of the 1976 no-mint mark penny. The historical context also enhances the coin's appeal, because 1976 was such a monumental year for the nation, marking the bicentennial, and filled with patriotic celebrations, parades, and commemorations. And while most people focused on the bicentennial quarters, halves, and dollars, the penny quietly continued its standard design, making era coins from this year feel like hidden secrets of the bicentennial era, treasures overlooked in the excitement of the larger denominations, and collectors love tying historical narrative to their coins. So a 1976 penny with a dramatic error is not just a numismatic rarity, but also a piece of bicentennial history, a dual layer of significance that adds to its desirability and hence its value. Another aspect that makes the 1976 penny so intriguing is the psychology of discovery, because the idea that you might find a coin worth $600,000 in your change jar or hidden in a drawer is intoxicating, and it fuels the treasure hunting spirit of coin collecting, motivating people to check every penny carefully, to search through rolls from banks, or to inherit collections from family, and scrutinize each piece. And while the odds of finding such a coin are small, the mere possibility is enough to keep the hobby thriving, and stories of individuals who have stumbled upon valuable coins by accident only fan the flames, reminding everyone that these treasures are out there, hiding in plain sight. Next, 1978 1-cent USA coin, another deep and immersive journey into the fascinating world of rare United States coins where ordinary pocket change becomes the stuff of dreams. And today we set our sights on the 1978 no-mint mark 1-cent coin, a Lincoln Memorial cent struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a year when the country was shifting through economic change, inflationary concerns, and a society that never once imagined that a humble copper penny could someday be worth as much as $400,000. Yet this is exactly what has happened with rare and spectacular era examples of the 1978 no-mint mark penny, coins that slipped through the cracks of the minting process and carried with them flaws, mistakes, and unique characteristics that transformed them from 1-cent pieces into once-in-a-lifetime treasures. And as we explore this story in great detail over thousands of words, we will uncover how the minting process works, what kinds of errors occurred in 1978, why certain varieties are so valuable, how grading and condition amplify value, and why collectors are willing to pay nearly $500,000 for a coin most people would overlook. So sit tight and prepare yourself for an exhaustive and continuous discussion with no breaks, no interruptions, and no blank spaces, just a flowing exploration of the magic, mystery, and fortune hidden in the 1978 no-mint mark penny. To begin, we need to place ourselves back in 1978, a year that on the surface didn't carry the monumental historical significance of 1976 with its bicentennial celebrations, But it was nonetheless an important era in American coinage, because the Lincoln Memorial Cent was still going strong, having been introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And by 1978, billions of these cents were being produced each year to meet the demands of a growing population, and the Philadelphia Mint, which struck coins without a mint mark, was a major source of these pennies, pumping them out by the millions daily. And with such huge production numbers, the opportunities for mistakes to occur increased dramatically, because dies wore down quickly, machinery was pushed to the limit, and quality control could not possibly catch every anomaly, meaning that error coins inevitably escaped into circulation, and decades later collectors began to identify these errors and varieties, cataloging them and assigning extraordinary values based on their rarity, severity, and condition. And that is where our story of the $400,000 penny begins, because within the massive mintage of 1978 pennies are tiny fractions of coins so unusual and so visually striking that they command jaw-dropping prices in the marketplace. One of the most famous categories of valuable errors for the 1978 penny is the doubled die, where during the die creation process the hub impresses the design elements onto the die more than once but not in perfect alignment, resulting in doubled features on the struck coins, and for 1978 pennies there are known doubled die obverse varieties that show strong doubling on the words "Liberty, in God We Trust," and even the date itself, and such dramatic doubling can make these coins immediately recognizable to even an untrained eye, and because of their rarity and visual appeal collectors are willing to pay enormous sums for them, especially in mint state condition, with the most extreme and bold examples potentially commanding values up to $400,000 when they come up for auction, and multiple wealthy collectors compete for ownership, and this makes the doubled die category one of the most thrilling aspects of the 1978 no mint mark penny story. Off-center strikes are another major error category that turns ordinary 1978 pennies into valuable rarities, because when the planchet is not properly seated in the striking chamber, the resulting coin can have part of its design missing or pushed to one side, leaving blank areas of copper where the design should have been, and these off-center errors are particularly valuable when they are dramatic, say 40% to 70% off-center, and still retain the full date, because the date is the anchor of identification, and without it collectors lose interest, but with it such coins become prized, and dramatic off-center strikes in uncirculated condition can reach into the tens of thousands. And in rare cases, when combined with other errors like doubled dies or clipped planchets, their value skyrockets, with some extraordinary specimens plausibly valued as high as $400,000. Speaking of clipped planchets, this is another type of error worth exploring in detail, because it occurs when the blank discs from which pennies are struck are mispunched, leaving a curved or straight portion missing from the edge of the coin, and when a 1978 no mint mark penny shows this error, especially in a dramatic or multiple clipped form, it becomes a unique and highly desirable collectible, and collectors are particularly excited when these clipped planchets show Blakesley effect, a weakness in the rim opposite the clip that confirms the clip is genuine and not caused by damage after minting. And while small clips may only fetch modest premiums, spectacular examples in pristine condition can bring huge prices, especially if they are certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. And in rare combinations with other errors, these clipped planchet 1978 pennies could push values into the six-figure range. Another extraordinary error that occurred with 1978 pennies is the wrong planchet error, where Lincoln's design was accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination or even a foreign coin, and these are among the rarest and most valuable errors of all, because they result in coins that have the wrong weight, size, or coloration yet still carry the unmistakable design and date of the Lincoln cent, and documented examples exist of pennies struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even blanks intended for coins of other countries, and these spectacular anomalies are so rare that each is essentially unique, and collectors will bid ferociously to acquire them, often driving prices into the hundreds of thousands, making them among the strongest contenders for the $400,000 valuation attached to the rarest 1978 no mint mark era pennies. Die breaks and die cracks also play a significant role in the story, because as the minting dyes wore out in 1978, they developed cracks and chips that transferred onto the coins as raised lines, blobs, or missing areas of design. And while small die cracks are relatively common and not especially valuable, large dramatic ones that create cuds, where a chunk of the die actually breaks away and leaves a raised blank blob on the coin, are extremely rare and collectible, because each cud is unique to the specific die and moment in minting history, making each cud coin a one-of-a-kind artifact. And when such errors appear on 1978 pennies, they become prized by specialists, and in rare cases when they are combined with other anomalies and preserved in mint state condition, their value can climb astonishingly high, potentially contributing to the $400,000 headline figures we see in coin auctions. Rotated die errors are another fascinating category, where the obverse and reverse of the coin are not properly aligned, so when you flip the coin from front to back, the reverse appears rotated at an angle, and while slight rotations of a few degrees are common, dramatic rotations of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees are highly collectible, and in the case of 1978 no mint mark pennies, such errors can add thousands or tens of thousands in value, especially in high-grade condition, and again when combined with other errors, the value multiplies. Double strikes and multiple strikes are also key to understanding the potential $400,000 valuation of the 1978 penny, because in these cases the coin is struck more than once by the dies, resulting in overlapping or ghost-like images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, or the reverse design, and these errors are visually striking and immediately fascinating to collectors, because they are so obvious and so unusual, and spectacular double strikes in mint state condition can fetch staggering sums, with rare examples reaching six figures or more. Now let's address the importance of grading and condition in determining value, because while errors and varieties create the fundamental rarity, it is the state of preservation that elevates a coin into the realm of extraordinary value, and grading services like PCGS, NGC, and Annex carefully evaluate coins on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with coins graded MS65, MS67, or higher being exponentially more valuable than those with wear or damage. And when a dramatic 1978 era penny is found in mint state condition with sharp details, full original luster, and no signs of circulation, it becomes the kind of coin that collectors dream of, and these are the coins that can reach $400,000 when offered in major auctions, because collectors know they are not only rare but also preserved in virtually perfect condition, a combination that is almost impossible to find. Last 1981 D1 cent USA coin. Our continuing deep dive into the world of rare and valuable United States Lincoln cents, where ordinary pennies that once jingled unnoticed in pockets, purses, and jars have gone on to become legendary treasures in the eyes of collectors. And today our focus shifts to the remarkable story of the 1981 D Mint Mark 1 cent coin. A Lincoln Memorial cent struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that in its ordinary state is just another member of the billions of copper plated issues produced during that era, but in its rarest and most extraordinary error or variety forms can command an incredible value of $200,000. And as always, we are here to take you on an immersive journey with no breaks and no interruptions, just a flowing exploration of how such an everyday coin can transform into a six-figure collectible, and what errors, mistakes, and possibilities make this specific year and mint mark so fascinating to the numismatic world. So prepare yourself as we unfold the layers of history, minting technology, varieties, and collector psychology that together elevate the 1981 D penny into a treasure beyond imagination. The first step in our journey is to understand the backdrop of the year 1981 in American coinage, because this was one of the last years in which pennies were struck primarily in a copper alloy, consisting of 95% copper and 5% zinc, before the massive shift that would occur in 1982 when the mint transitioned to copper-plated zinc planchets, a change driven by the rising cost of copper that made it impractical for the government to continue producing pennies at a loss. And this fact alone makes late copper-era cents like the 1981 D coin especially nostalgic and attractive to collectors, because they represent the end of an age, a closing chapter before a new era of cheaper compositions began. And within this context, errors and varieties from 1981 take on an added significance, as they embody not only mechanical imperfections but also historical moments frozen in time, anomalies from a period of transition that collectors cherish and value. Now let us move into the specific errors and mistakes that make the 1981 D penny worth extraordinary sums, and chief among them are double die varieties, where during the hubbing process, the creation of the dies that impressed designs onto the planchets, there was a misalignment that caused the design to be struck twice onto the die in slightly different positions, and when that die struck coins it produced images with doubled features, most commonly on the obverse and the inscriptions, "Liberty in God We Trust," and the date, or on the reverse in the lettering of "United States of America, e pluribus unum," or 1 cent. And in dramatic examples the doubling is so bold that it is visible without magnification, making these coins instantly recognizable, and such spectacular doubled dies are exceedingly rare, and when paired with a mint state grade from a major grading service like PCGS or NGC they can command values climbing into the tens of thousands, and in extreme cases with bold doubling and high preservation, prices as high as $200,000 have been achieved or plausibly could be in competitive auctions. Because wealthy collectors know they may never again see another example of such quality and rarity. Off-center strikes are another category that contributes to the value of 1981 D pennies, because when a planchet is not properly seated in the striking chamber the dies will strike it incorrectly, leaving part of the coin blank and part with only partial design elements. And these errors are fascinating because they show the minting process gone awry in a dramatic and visible way, and collectors particularly prize off-center strikes where the misalignment is significant, in the range of 40% to 70%, while still showing the date and mint mark intact. Because that combination allows the coin to be identified and authenticated while displaying the dramatic error, and such coins in high mint state grades can bring many thousands of dollars, and when coupled with other errors like doubling, die cracks, or clipped planchets, the values can increase exponentially, leading to extraordinary auction results in the six-figure range. Clipped planchet errors also make 1981 D pennies highly collectible, because when the blanks are punched from the metal strip, sometimes overlapping punches or misfeeds cause the blank to come out incomplete, leaving a curved or straight missing section on the coin's edge, and when such clips are dramatic and confirmed with the Blakesley effect, a weakness opposite the clip caused by the minting process, they become valuable collectibles, particularly in mint state grades, and while minor clips may be worth modest premiums, spectacular multiple clips or combined errors can become rare treasures. And examples from 1981 D with such features are highly sought after, with the potential to achieve values into the tens of thousands or more. Wrong planchet errors represent another category of extreme rarity and value, because on rare occasions Lincoln cents were struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins, and when a 1981 D penny appears on a dime planchet, nickel planchet, or foreign blank, it becomes an anomaly that is virtually unique, with the wrong weight, diameter, or coloration while still showing the Lincoln design and the 1981 D date, and these errors are so rare that each example is essentially one of a kind, and collectors know that missing such an opportunity means likely never seeing another again, so they bid ferociously, often driving prices into the six figures, and this is another pathway by which a 1981 D penny could realistically reach $200,000 in value. Die cracks and cuds also play a role, because as dies wear out they can develop fractures that leave raised lines or blobs on coins, and when the cracks grow severe enough, pieces of the die can break away entirely, leaving blank raised areas called cuds, and these coins are fascinating to collectors because each cud is unique to the specific die and moment of failure, making each cud coin a one-of-a-kind piece of minting history. And dramatic cuds on 1981 D pennies, especially in mint state, are highly collectible and can bring strong premiums, particularly when they occur in unusual positions or combine with other errors. Another category worth noting is rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse are not aligned properly, so that when you flip the coin from front to back the reverse appears rotated, and while small rotations are relatively common, dramatic rotations of 90 degrees or more are rare and collectible, and such dramatic rotated die errors on 1981 D pennies can command large premiums, especially in mint condition. Double strikes and multiple strikes are among the most spectacular errors that can occur, because they create coins with overlapping or repeated images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, or the reverse design, and these errors are visually stunning and immediately obvious even to casual observers, making them highly desirable in the collector market, and dramatic double strikes in high grade can fetch extraordinary prices. And in the rarest cases where a coin shows an off-center double strike with visible dates and mint marks, values can soar into the hundreds of thousands, placing them squarely in the realm of the $200,000 valuation we are discussing. The role of condition and grading cannot be overstated, because while errors create the rarity, it is the preservation of the coin that amplifies its value to extraordinary levels, and grading services assign numerical grades from 1 to 70, with coins graded MS65, MS67, or higher being vastly more valuable than those with wear or damage. And when an error coin like a doubled die or wrong planchet 1981 D penny is found in such pristine condition, with full luster, sharp details, and no signs of circulation, it becomes the kind of numismatic treasure that collectors dream about, and such coins are the ones capable of achieving $200,000 auction prices, because they combine rarity, dramatic error, and superb condition in one irresistible package. The historical context of 1981 also adds to the value of these coins, because it was a year of transition not only in terms of composition but also in terms of minting technology, as the mint was modernizing equipment and preparing for the changes of the 1980s, and errors from this period reflect the challenges of high-volume production and aging machinery, making them important artifacts of minting history, and collectors who specialize in late Copper era cents particularly prize them as the last of their kind before the Zinc era began. Beyond the technicalities, there is also the thrill of discovery, the idea that such a valuable coin could still be hiding in plain sight among ordinary change, because billions of 1981 D pennies were minted, and while the vast majority are worth only 1 cent, the tiny handful with spectacular errors remain out there, possibly still undiscovered in coin rolls, piggy banks, or collections passed down through families, and this possibility fuels the passion of collectors and treasure hunters who search tirelessly, hoping to be the lucky one who finds the $200,000 penny that others overlooked.